You're a rock star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get your show on, get paid. All that's living is gold. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Oh, I just got that all recorded. Someone's welcome to join me when the game starts.
Okay, are you guys ready?
We are ready.
All right, we're ready.
I'm ready. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready. I was born to be
Sean
ready.
was born ready. Born to be ready. Okay, so welcome to I guess episode 2 of Stay Indoors, and we're finally getting around to talking about Captain America: Civil War, the newest Marvel movie in the long, long line of Marvel movies.
The billionth Marvel.
Do we know how many they're up to now? Like
13?
12 or 13?
13, yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. That's absolutely ridiculous. So, I guess we should start with the most basic question just to get out of the way for everybody. Team Cap or Team Iron Man?
Oh, Cap.
Cap?
Cap.
I want to be different and say Iron Man, but I'm really Team Cap.
And I'm Team Cap all the way.
But the movie put a good argument for both.
That's the thing I think I liked most about the writing is if you look at it from everyone's perspective, no one is in the wrong.
Yeah, no one's really in the wrong. For me, the reason that I'm Team Cap is because I think the movie does a good job of showcasing it, but sort of the whole point, the whole reason Cap does what he does is because basically he's just such a fundamentally good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's seen the corruption. Like Winter Soldier was a great setup for that because he's seen the corruption of a government run like task force or police force or whatever. Like he says in the movie, this is spoiler filled, by the way.
It's gonna
all the spoilers.
So many spoilers.
He talks in the movie about how organizations are run by people with agendas and people who are out to accomplish certain things or do certain things, and like Hydra in Winter Soldier completely took over S.H.I.E.L.D., and that was like the international peacekeeping organization.
Yeah.
So from Cap's perspective, you look at it and you say, well, yeah, if they just form another organization, there could be some corrupt government official who's using the Avengers as a weapon and pointing them at the enemies they want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, you do look at Tony's side and you see, like, they did cause a lot of collateral damage. Like they were directly responsible.
Right. And in terms of, like, an international, like, political spectrum is there needs to be contingencies. There needs to be people accountable for that.
Yeah.
And if you have this kind of third-party organization going into places and ignoring borders like they are, and like wrecking havoc and then kind of leaving, it's not really this. It really is kind of unacceptable.
Yeah.
In any world.
I think they kind of present it where Cap is the idealist and Tony is the realist.
Yeah.
But because it's this world with superheroes and you've seen like the cynical realism of the government organizations, I tend to side with Cap and his idealism because he's trying to create like sort of an idealistic world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so far, Cap hasn't been wrong. Like, Cap himself, like, Tony Stark created Ultron. The entire second Avengers movie was basically his fault. Like, Sokovia, that is on Tony, so you understand where he's coming from. But Cap was mad at him for creating Ultron, tried to shut it down at every turn he got. If he had been operating with a government organization, Hydra would have won, because him going rogue agent was what saved, like, how many lives, because he stopped Hydra from infecting S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first one.
Yeah.
So you also see the very real world application of Cap's idea where he says, no, like, if we're getting told what to do and where to go, and he has that line, right? Like, what if we have to be somewhere and we can't because, like, there's papers that haven't been signed, or they send us somewhere we don't think we should go, and that's exactly the problem that he solved in Winter Soldier. So you totally see Cap's side as well, and like you said, every character has their perspective on it, and it makes sense.
Like both sides are. That's what I think is just good writing and good fundamental movie making. Is you have a legitimate reason for every character's motivation.
Yeah, I mean, let's run down the list. I think we should ignore Spider-Man for now because he has a whole other there's like a section we have to talk about Spider-Man. But like Cap and Iron Man, we pretty much covered. Rhodey, War Machine, they're the stars of the film for sure. War Machine is he's always been in Iron Man's corner. But he also is a soldier, and he does already work for the military and understands like you have to have that system of accountability. So he makes sense.
Yeah.
Falcon is sort of like Cap's roadie, and he's the opposite, where he was with them in Winter Soldier and saw how everything can go to shit when the wrong people are in charge. So he's got that.
I think his main thing is loyalty overall.
Yeah. And then you've got Black Panther, who is amazing, and I also want to talk about, but he's very well established. Let's just say that for now.
They do a really good job.
Black Panther's great. You've got who we got? We got Black Widow. And
he's 40, by the way.
Chadwick Boseman's 40.
He's 40.
Man.
No way. He is like the best looking 40-year-old.
Wait, T'Challa?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone was like, "Oh, who's this like super young guy who they hired to play Black Panther?" Like, this is gonna be interesting because usually Black Panther is like he's like a king. He's like usually older.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's 40.
That blows my mind. I'm gonna be honest. I was not expecting that.
That's dope.
Black Widow is really cool because she's kind of been on both sides and she kind of plays that role in the film of like
she really tries to mediate.
Yeah, and she never really picks a side because she gets where both of them are coming from.
Yeah,
which is super cool. Thor and Hulk are gone, which was a good call. They kept the movie really well balanced.
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch and Vision have this whole super cool subplot.
Oh my god.
And there's something that is prevalent, I think, throughout the whole movie is that particular story pays sort of homage to their relationship in the comics.
Yeah.
Where like they're married and are emotionally in a relationship.
Yeah.
But it never makes it like a bigger deal than it makes sense for it to be in the movie.
Yeah.
For the sake of that comic book reference.
Yeah.
They just have this cool, like, Vision's a robot, so he doesn't really understand people, but he finds Wanda and her fear and, like, sort of their shared origin with Ultron. Like, he's very fascinated by her and feels bad that everybody's scared of her because he sees her as this, like, almost beautiful, delicate thing. And then Vision, conversely, or Scarlet Witch, like, finds Vision fascinating and sees that he's almost got humanity. And so they have this cool friendship and, like, relationship.
Yeah.
And
it's actually really quite touching.
It's very touching and it's very subtle.
And it's done very well, I think. It's never overplayed. You're never like, why is the robot like totally flirting with the weird witch girl?
Yeah.
Like that never
like
came
that,
up for me.
The thing is, that would have been so weird though if like they played it off like that. It's just like, like I understand like Vision, who's just like he's like a being now, which is like
he is like a person, but he's not.
He's synthetic though.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like a synthesized and created living thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not really an AI, like more than an AI, because like he has flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just like a personality like algorithm implanted in his brain with knowledge.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's kind of like waking up and being 30 years old right away, and you're like,
oh,
yeah, but he's like weirdly able to be okay with that because he like understands it.
Yeah,
you know.
It's like
So that was super cool. Hawkeye shows back up, but he has like one line. I actually missed this line the first time I watched it because Sean and I are the only two who've seen it twice so far.
Yeah.
We watched it the other day again, and he's got this line about how like because he shows back up because Cap recruits his help.
Yeah.
And he's got this line, and he shows up, and he basically says like, "Oh yeah, like I owed Wanda a debt because Wanda's being like held by Tony."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I owed Wanda a debt." It's like, "Oh right, Quicksilver." Like.
I missed that too.
Yeah, he basically says like he gets back in because he owed Wanda a debt. Like he needs to help her out.
Yeah, he says he.
Oh shit! Okay,
and that's super cool because you're kind of like, okay, Hawkeye's like, I get like for the movie, they're like, oh, we want to get Hawkeye back, we want to get everybody involved.
But like he retired.
But he retired and he's got his kids and everything. But he was doing it because of Wanda, like she was in trouble.
And I think it's partially Cap too. Like I think.
Oh, definitely.
Well, he definitely had a standing.
Cap's like, hey, I need your help.
Yeah, and Hawkeye's like,
yeah.
Because I think Hawkeye like also being a former agent of Shield like probably gets that too, right? That a sense of like we need to be somewhere.
Like,
you need to do what is necessary to protect the things that you care about.
It's like the world needs,
right?
Which is interesting because they actually, again, the plot, because it's a Captain America movie, and this is what I was hoping going into it, having like, I think I'm the only one who's actually read the Civil War comic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll briefly touch on it a little bit. And having read that, I was really hoping that the movie was kind of going to side with Cap, which it very much does because it's a Captain America movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that like Cap has a mission to do, and it actually very much highlights his whole point because they use the Winter Soldier to great effect of like this personal angle for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Especially for Cap, and they kind of make you have you a personal hook to realize the greater ramifications of the Sokovia Accords,
Yeah.
which is just their name for the Superhuman Registration Act in this movie.
Yeah.
And basically, Winter Soldier is on the hook for a murder that he may or may not have committed, that you find out later on.
Yeah.
But Cap is the only one who believes that he didn't do it. And so everybody's going after Winter Soldier. You find out Winter Soldier was the wrong man.
Yeah.
And Cap, because he's operating outside the law and not working with the organization, he's actually going to stop the crisis. You know, like that's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody's directing their resources to the wrong person because they've just got their order to doing things. And
right.
the order is we take down Winter Soldier, and that's all that matters.
Right. And I thought that was like a really great line to kind of like to showcase like the idea of like following blind orders is when you get Iron Man and Cap and they first meet at the airport, and you get that line about it's like we're not some gray-faced like JSOC guys that are gonna shoot first, like it's us.
You're gonna come in because it's us.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah. That fight scene was so good.
That fight scene.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
The action.
Right, man.
that fight scene.
I think like the biggest thing about that fight scene is that like it's interesting because like no one was kind of in it to kill anybody else. It was kind of just like okay, like
stay
I don't
down.
want to argue anymore. Like what the hell?
It really
and
felt like
and
a
like
jump kill.
every person who was fighting it felt like they were in it, and like but like that scene where what is it where Scarlet Witch sees Hawkeye pulling back, pulling his punches, and she's like, don't do that, like I know we're kind of friends, but like this is a big deal, stop it. And and then just the choreography.
Okay, the thing that we were talking about too, that fight, nobody feels like they get like dropped or like the action doesn't make sense or they're suddenly somewhere in the fight that they shouldn't be.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Somebody shows up and you're like, yeah, that makes sense because they left that part and now they're going this way, so they should show up here. And like, there's even a part where, okay, they do Giant Man and I can't handle it. It's so good.
It's
Yeah.
so
And there's a
great.
part where Spider-Man is like climbing on Giant Man's back, and you see that from like multiple angles from like while other fights are going on in the foreground. You just see like Spider-Man's continuing to climb up his back, and it's like that little attention to detail of like this feels like a long continuous fight. And it's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I think my favorite part of the fight is actually the beginning when you have like the kind of sectioned off, and you've got Iron Man going after like Wanda and Clint, and then you've got Spider-Man, the Winter Soldier, and Falcon duking it out.
Yeah.
And then you've got Black Panther and Iron Man fighting. Oh, it's
And you
so
got like
good.
Cap goes after Cap stops Black Panther and War Machine.
Yeah,
They kind of get involved. No, it's so good. And then like Scarlet Witch is like so on point with her use of her powers and everything.
Yeah,
of
in this
like
one,
how
so
she
good.
helps in the fight and how it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And like I said, her personal story with the Lagos bombing and Vision, and then how that connects to it. Nobody feels wasted. Everybody drives the plot, like their presence.
Yeah.
Well, except for
this guy. He kind of just shows up like this out of nowhere.
which is
his thing.
I'm a little okay with it.
So am I.
I'm
Just a little okay with it.
Like, I don't mind it.
Ironically, or maybe not ironically, you're the one who spoke the most about Spider-Man's role in this movie.
Yes. So I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's me and I could talk forever about Spider-Man. But my problem is I know nobody wanted another origin movie, but this is probably the Spider-Man we're going to have for a while. Like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has no signs of slowing down. We're going to have this Spider-Man for a long time. And in the comics, like, he's one of Marvel's longest-running heroes. He's been around since... The only people who've been around longer are basically the Fantastic Four. Like, he predates the formation of the Avengers in the comics, not in the movies, and that's totally cool. But the point is, he's a big deal. He's, like, one of the world's most iconic, famous superheroes. And I would have been so okay with just one more origin movie to, like, establish him before he gets dragged in, because now it kind of feels like Tony built him his, like... He's got his own, like, rudimentary Spider-Man suit.
Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with, like, Tony necessarily giving him an upgrade, because in this universe, he does that for everybody.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Peter's also a super genius.
Yeah.
Like, Peter also builds his own tech.
Yeah.
And he does design his own webbing, which I'm super stoked they managed to, like, work that in and tell you for sure, like, I built this webbing, and Tony is impressed with it.
Yeah.
Like, Tony's like, this is cool. Like, where did you get this? He's like, oh, I made it.
Webbing? Like, is that coming out of you?
Yeah. He built it himself, and that's super cool. I'm super stoked about that. But, like, Peter's the other science genius, and I'm a little upset that like he just kind of gets thrown in and roped in, and like Tony has to kind of legitimize him.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think the way I felt about it was that, like, okay, well, for one, if you're going to take any, like, big-name Marvel character right now and just put them into MCU because you want them to be involved and, like, we don't really have time to put them in with an origin story and stuff like that, Spider-Man is the one to do it with because everyone knows his origin story and it's been done so many times in the cinematic world.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. But then, and then also, the thing I was going to say is that, like, with the whole, like, Tony making a suit, I didn't look at it so much as of, like, Tony needed to do it for him as much as it was like Tony had the resources and the money, so it didn't really bother me. I was like, if Spider-Man like had the time and then the resources and the money, he would have built it himself. But because like Tony wants him in this fight, like I'm assuming like only a couple days later from the scene where they meet.
No, like hours later.
But yeah, if that, right? So like it makes sense that Tony's just like, here, I can assemble one like this quickly with like my resources and my materials.
Well, no, that's the thing. Like, it makes sense within the world they've constructed. I'm just like, and then like the time frame they build themselves, but like the movie builds that time frame itself in order to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And your point about origin stories, that's the thing. I get it. I get why they didn't want to do another one, but for me, the origin story is really important, and it's why like when they did Amazing Spider-Man 1 and it was like another origin story, I'm okay with it because it's like a different version of Peter. It's telling a different story, and like the things he's gone through aren't the same. Even if it is like the origin story,
because
like the details change, so we don't know exactly what this Peter went through, like how Uncle Ben died, what he was doing beforehand, what the exact moment he decided to become Spider-Man, and we have all those details for almost everybody else in the MCU.
Yeah.
We saw Cap become Cap, we saw Tony become Iron Man, and this time it's like, yeah, you guys know who Spider-Man is, so let's just have him because now we have the rights to him.
I'm okay with getting it later though.
I think that's what's going to happen though. I think we're going to get a
whether it like takes place before or whether it's just like flashbacks during a more like current movie of him, like I don't know, like I'm okay with getting it later.
It's definitely gonna happen.
But the other thing is like Spider-Man, his whole thing, I'm totally cool with him eventually joining the Avengers or like being a bigger part of the superhero community.
Infinity War.
Yeah.
But a big part of who Spider-Man is, who Peter has always been, is like kind of this like loner kid who's like he's struggling because he's trying to make ends meet while also being a superhero while keeping up his like interpersonal relationships. And like in the MCU, there isn't really the secret identities. Everybody kind of knows who everybody is. So Peter would be the only one who still has that going for him, and like kind of living on the outskirts and not having a support network of people he can turn to.
Yeah.
And they immediately got rid of that.
Yeah.
Because he's already funded by Tony Stark. Like,
I guess so.
How do you turn him into like the downtrodden teenager with money problems when he's buddies with Tony Stark?
Yeah, and that's just another story they're gonna have to deal with. And I
hope he kind of turns his back on Tony after the Civil War. Like that would be really cool, a cool angle.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they will because he's a less established character, and like as Peter Parker, he would have totally idolized Tony as like a scientist.
Yeah, and Iron Man though.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think as a hero, he would have idolized Cap more, and they actually play off the Cap Spider-Man relationship really well, in terms of like
that's amazing.
Captain, like I'm a big fan of Spider-Man. That's perfect.
That's really good.
Cap, Spider-Man, big fan.
But yeah, I like I said, I could spend hours, and I might do like a solo video of me just talking about Spider-Man. But I'm stoked to see him. The action was amazing, and like his personality was super on point.
Yeah, what's the actor's name again?
Tom Holland.
I thought he was great.
And I actually loved Spider-Man, like having him, like the way they did him.
Yeah.
I just still would have rather just not have him.
I think
and spent more time on like War Machine or something.
I think they did like other than like you wanting like an origin movie or something like that. I feel like if like this was like they had to put him in this movie, like they did an amazing.
They did him pretty much as well as they could have.
And I'm so stoked on like the Spider-Man that actually feels young. Like I feel like I mean it might be because I was younger when I saw the original like Tobey Maguire ones come out.
Tobey Maguire was also already too old.
Yeah, but like even though because doesn't the first one take place when he's still in high school?
Yeah, it opens up with him graduating high school, and it does not work.
And it doesn't feel like that, right? But this
Tom Holland's like 19.
Tom Holland, he feels young, and he sounds like a kid.
He feels like a 15-year-old.
Yeah,
like legitimately looking at him, I'm like, this kid's 15. Like I know he's 19, but I'm like, you look 15. Like I believe you're 15.
And Peter,
love it.
Officially, it was supposed to be 15 when he started. He was actually like a high school senior, so he should have been 17. But like 15 to 17 range like works, and Tom Holland plays that perfectly. So yeah, overall, I'm excited to see what they do with him. A little nervous because I always am, but would have kept him out.
Yeah.
Loved him.
For how they decided to rush him in, I thought they did a good enough job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk about War Machine?
I do want to talk about War Machine. I'm fucking pissed. But at the same
What,
time,
what did they do to War Machine, Sean? What happened?
okay, well, they fucking basically fridged him. They're like, we have too many black superheroes now. Got to get one crippled. You know, I mean, that's obviously not what they did, and that's not what they intended, and I know that. But I'm still a little pissed because of how inconsequential War Machine is to like the general superhero like population. Like he's more of a soldier than a superhero.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like okay to like throw him under the bus and like give him the paralyzed story. But you know what? The more I've been thinking about it, the more I'm actually a little bit more excited to see Rhodes go through like that adversity.
Yeah.
And
I
like,
think it kind of had Quicksilveritis, where they're like, we
Yeah.
really want to raise the stakes and have something traumatic happen, but we still don't want to do it to Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans.
that's exactly what I felt. I was
So-
like, why did this not happen to?
Yeah.
Right? Because then you could never have the Avengers again.
Yeah. I was waiting for them to kill off. I legitimately was convinced they were going to kill off Tony in this movie.
Really?
Well, because like there were so many rumors about him like not continuing in the Marvel universe, and like him as an actor like getting too old and being too expensive, and that like, and especially at the end of Age of Ultron, where like it was kind of clear that they were going to build like a new Avengers, and that the Avengers that we got in the original movie might not be what we have in Infinity War. I was like, it wouldn't surprise me if they killed off Tony and they just like had like a new Avengers team that like didn't involve Iron Man, just to like. And so I don't know. I was convinced that might have happened, but or Bucky, but
The final fight scene.
Oh
Like-
my god.
Okay, when you get Bucky, Cap, and Iron Man thrown down,
Yeah.
they managed to convince me at various times in that fight scene that all three of them might die
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
be brutally injured.
Well, the thing that like got me the most is that I forgot that Tony's arc reactor no longer affects like his heart or whatever.
Oh yeah,
And so that scene where Bucky is like pushing Tony up against the wall and
He,
like
like,
straight up just
breaks the
digging
casing
and
on the
trying
arc
to-
reactor.
and like trying to pull out the arc reactor from his chest, I was like, he's about to just murder Tony. Oh my god! Like
Yeah.
my heart rate was like through the roof. I couldn't believe it. And then it wasn't until after that we got out and they're like, Brandon doesn't affect his heart anymore. And I was like, oh, what?
That would,
I mean,
which is
That's
good.
still like really like crazy, but like
which is good
it
because
was
Cap
way
still,
more intense.
Cap still fucking broke the thing.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, that's the thing. When I saw that, and I'm like, Cap, don't. What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, which is I think is ironically it's one of the few things that Iron Man 3 did well is get rid of his arc reactor from his chest.
yeah, like have him have that progression of like, we have the technology, like my heart's okay now, but I'm still Iron, and it kind of made Iron Man more of a choice,
Yeah.
which they even address briefly in Civil War.
Yeah.
Mostly the MCU has ignored Iron Man 3, and I think which is probably a good idea
Good idea.
overall.
A lot of those other movies, they have like things that really add to the overall arcing like story, but like some of the like takes on them are not well.
Yeah.
What was the villain in Iron Man 3?
The Mandarin.
No, Mandarin and
Aldrich Killian.
Aldrich Killian, yeah, that Aldrich Killian
Yeah,
was.
just we don't need to spend any more time on it. Captain America 3 was significantly better. But speaking of villains, Zemo.
Zemo.
He was so good.
I loved him.
It's like for one, this movie really didn't have a villain. The villain was more like themselves. And like the idea.
Well, it
of
didn't have
the
a villain in
Sokovia
the traditional
Accords and
sense.
that.
Like they don't have somebody they're fighting.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
like Zemo is very much in the background trying to.
He
stir
was just
shit
like
up.
this small catalyst, and like a good portion of the movie happened without him.
Yeah, but I think that's what a good villain does.
No, true.
And he was such a breath of fresh air from
superhero movie, right?
from the original ones, where it's like, here's a villain, and he's got a bunch of like mindless dudes for the Avengers to fight.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they spent the whole time in like, if you think of it as a video game, the whole movie was boss battles. They were fighting the other heroes. There was like
Yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
minions, like no chumps. It was
Yeah.
all boss battles.
Yeah.
And then so Zemo was just like manipulating them to make them fight each other, just like subtly, like just pushing the tension and like and using the Winter Soldier as that catalyst to like really drive the action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, he was so good.
Yeah.
He was so subtle, so good. And then there's Black Panther.
Oh. So good.
The way they brought in Wakanda into that movie was
It was
great.
so tight
They
because
can we just say like how well they just like brought in all the different things they needed to in such a short amount of time and not make it feel like rushed or like anything like that compared to like Batman vs Superman.
Yeah, no, it was. They have the benefit of they have so many things already established. Like when Hawkeye shows up, you don't go, "Who's this guy?" You go, "Oh, Clint's back."
Yeah.
And
Which is so good. So they don't have to spend the time on it, and they can just be like, "Oh yeah, no, this guy's here," and you immediately go like, "Okay, he's friends with Black Widow." So when he says the line about like we're still friends, you're like, "Yep, okay," because they have that relationship.
Yeah.
And like he's worked with the Avengers, and Quicksilver died, so he has to help out Wanda. When you hear that line, and like you understand everything because you're already on board with what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that we were talking. I mentioned this the other day, but I think it's because this series of movies is really the only kind of movie that can make that flow.
Yeah.
Because it's a series of movies.
It's
because
like
there's
episodic
something.
movies. It's like this weird bridge of like how you normally write for TV, but you're doing it in like a 2-hour movie format in like chunks. And so you drop these plot threads, and like the thing that does it so well is like Civil War. It raises huge questions about the future of the MCU. Like you're gonna have basically the Secret Avengers, and like I'm hoping Cap takes up the Nomad identity because he's now like basically a man without a country.
Yeah.
He's like operating out of Wakanda with like a team of Secret Avengers or whatever.
Yeah.
But so that like hugely changes the landscape.
Yeah.
But they also came from a place that you had understood, and it also wrapped up its own movie. So you're excited and you're going like, oh man, what are they gonna do next? Everything's gonna be different.
Yeah.
But they're also like, okay, like this story concluded. The Sokovia Accords got signed without Cap wanting them to, and now he's operating on his own.
Yeah.
Counter to the Avengers.
Yeah.
And like,
Oh.
so well done.
I was talking about this actually the other day with Sam, and I find it interesting. It's just kind of like, so if someone came up to you and went like, I've never really watched any of the superhero movies, like what should I watch first?
Oh God.
Because like Avengers is like great, and like you probably want to go like, oh, watch this one because it's like fucking epic and like all the characters in it, whatever. But it's like, they won't
get it.
They won't get it. They won't like appreciate it as much without like the build up, because like we all watched them from Iron Man, and like we like earned the other movies, right? So it's so tough, and like it was from another review or something I was watching, and they were saying how like it's kind of funny how it's becoming such a like enclosed world where like the movies are constantly making references to themselves. And, like, it's really tough to like really appreciate things like Civil War and stuff like that. And they are good movies without them, but like there are a lot of references you're like, oh, what are they talking about, or like what character is that or whatever, without watching the movies. It's so tough. And so like in one aspect it's really you should go for it. In one aspect of it, it's really smart because now instead of like Marvel having just like people watch that one movie, they now have to watch 12. Right, so like they're selling more. But on the other hand, like I feel like it's not going to be that much longer before it's going to be really hard for these movies to sustain themselves, because it's going to be like, I have no idea what's going on. I didn't watch the Iron Man that came out like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. It might not ever become that bad, but I think it will just like we won't. I don't think we'll see more than like another 10 years.
You know what? I almost disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think they should stop in about 10 years.
That's
but
and like do other universes and stuff, like, and like you do the same like model, but like not with Marvel anymore. Like, I want to see like other companies do the same the model.
Okay, this is driving me nuts. How do you change characters in this stupid game?
Why?
I'm turned into a teapot.
You can't.
Oh, you're in story mode right now.
Free play.
Oh,
You're on free play.
Check me out.
Okay, that game is fantastic. All right.
I want to briefly touch on. I don't want to spend too much time on it because you guys haven't read it yet. But
we are running on pretty long time. We're at like 35 minutes, I think, right now.
Well, we're at like 27 since we started doing this.
27. Okay.
But I just wanted to briefly say that I think overall, way better than the comics. For anybody who's read the comics, I just want to briefly touch on the fact that in the comics, the Superhuman Registration Act is taking place in a world where the heroes have been around for decades. No one's ever questioned their actions and has basically said, like, yeah, we'll let the heroes help us out, and they're great, and they're basically worshipped as heroes, and that's the only ramifications we've ever had. Then the catalyst is that a bunch of teenagers with really no experience using their powers try to have a reality TV show, bite off more they can chew, get a bunch of people killed, and the next logical step is basically that they're arresting Captain America. It was a poor setup in the movies, like Sokovia, Washington, the New York attacks. There was collateral damage that was caused by the Avengers, and that's what people are scared of. So the connection is a lot stronger. They're willing to say, like, maybe the superheroes are dangerous, which the comics they never really wanted to say. They wanted to still have the good guys defeat the good guys. Essentially, the
Yeah.
full heroes are never really the problem.
Yeah.
And also, they never really explain the conflict in the comic. You know what it is because you read all the hype and you understand like, oh, Tony wants to do this and like the accountability. But if you actually read that comic, Cap's biggest complaint is that it's like a tradition, and Tony is just bitching about how people are scared of them, and he's got plans for the future, but nothing is ever actually explained in that book. You can argue that it's in the spin-off stuff, but the core, I don't know. I haven't read all of them. I've read some Spider-Man, which is also atrocious. Spider-Man was way better in the movie. But the core actual Civil War 12 titles or whatever it is that is the Civil War story never explains the conflict. It never actually tells you what they're fighting for. It doesn't do anything well, and the movie handled it 1,000 times better. I hate the book. I think it's awful, but the movie was freaking amazing, and it presents really good questions that you get when you apply the realism, the pseudo-realism fantasy element that they have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but like the realism of, okay, we've got these guys dressing up in costumes, fighting crime and stopping bad guys, and then we're just going to ask like real-world ramifications. What does that do?
Yeah.
And the movie actually raises those questions and addresses them in a way that I felt the comics never did. So that's I just wanted to throw that out there.
The comics were like the idea behind it and stuff like that was really good, but like it was
The
just
execution
really
was
poor. The execution was
awful.
poor. Yeah. There was somebody who I said they kind of wished that Civil War. I guess they were talking about how comics definitely reflect like what's happening in like current pop culture and like what's happening in our world. And that, like, when the comic came out, it was a big thing about, like, there was more to it about the actual war itself, but, like, the reality TV thing, like, reality TV was, like, a big thing when Civil War came out. So, like, doing that kind of, like, reality TV show with the superheroes and everything being, like, the catalyst for the Civil War was kind of interesting. And so a lot of people were kind of asked, like, they wished that... I don't, shut up. They I'm talking, I'm not paying attention. A lot of people wish that, like, maybe Civil War had a bit more to say about, like... had a bit more to say. You saw that. I flew through the ledge.
No, you missed it.
You still missed
it.
it.
Can I see?
That a lot of people wish that Civil War had more to say about, like, specifically...
Never played this game before in my
maybe
life.
the U.S.'s more...
One try.
Oh my god.
Political situation. And stuff like that. And also... this was a Captain America movie, so like obviously he's the protagonist and like it is about him. But again, this isn't necessarily something I felt. This is just something else that I was reading somewhere. Some other people thought that there wasn't enough saying that like there was a downside to Cap's like stubbornness and like to his like it was constantly kind of showing that like Tony Stark was kind of in the bad for being like a realist. But I think they should have shown like. You know, that sometimes, like that whole scene where Carter is at the funeral and she's talking about, like, compromise.
Yeah.
And he's saying that, like, you know, compromise where you can.
Or where you can't.
Because you should, but, like, where you can, like, don't. And I think it was very rare to watch Cap compromise at all.
Yeah.
So I think, and, like, so I just feel like he was very stubborn and, like, and it was very Cap, right? Because he stood for what he stood for and, like, all that kind of stuff, so that's good. But I just felt like they never showed like a downside for him doing that. Like it was kind of like I'm doing the right thing. And like,
well, I think that the downside is kind of gonna, and I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think the ending kind of has that because he compromised and now he's a wanted criminal who can't actually fully operate as Captain America.
Yeah.
So he basically his compromise and is in accepting the consequences of his actions.
Yeah.
So
which is what he says originally. That's like his first thing. He's like, that the blame is on us, so if we can't accept that.
Yeah, he's got that great line where he basically says, like, yeah, we save everyone we can. Sometimes that doesn't mean everybody. But if we can't accept the consequences of that, then sometimes maybe next time nobody gets saved.
Yeah.
We can't go out again.
Yeah.
And so he chooses that. And then also later he says that line about how, like, all the Accords do is shift the blame to, like, a government organization instead of, like, them really being accountable.
Yeah.
And so he remained accountable, and now he's a criminal for it.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be out doing his solo thing and fighting for what he believes in. But it also means that now the cops are after him, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the setup, is that it's in the payoff at the end of the movie, where he now gives up being Captain America.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
In order to keep being Captain America.
Yeah. We should probably wrap it up soon, but one other thing I wanted to bring up was that I found it very interesting because I can't remember what part of the movie, but I think Tony kind of exclaims that, like, Cap is, like, being emotional because he's trying to, like, protect Bucky.
Yeah.
but like Tony's side was entirely more emotional.
Tony is volatile that entire movie.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
like because like Tony like emotional in the sense where like because Bucky's his friend, yes,
Yeah.
but like from the very beginning he like holds the same moral ground and he's never like ridiculous about it. Like he's always just very controlled and like no, like that's I don't think this is right. Let's like talk.
Yeah,
about
like when
it.
he finally
like,
gets Bucky, when he's been mind controlled, he like puts him in that thing where his arms like clamp down. So
Yeah,
he can't move. Like he's like,
exactly.
I've got shit to do. We're
Yeah.
taking care of this situation.
And, but like Tony's side, like he just like completely acts in emotion because like he's upset about like people dying from like the Avengers and more specifically like maybe him and then like it even shows in the scene where like Vision, the one person who's supposed to be like logical and like unemotional, like admits that like he wasn't himself or whatever when he like accidentally shot War Machine.
Yeah, he got distracted.
And so I just think that's a really cool conflict there.
No,
And
absolutely.
it's just like, oh, Cap's trying to protect his fan. Like, why don't you just like suck it up, Cap? And it's like, no, you guys are being babies.
Well, like,
Press B.
Hold B.
No, you can just press it,
Oh, and
and then you walk through the flames.
Oh.
I also gotta say, like, and this, do you have a point to that?
About the emotional nature
Yeah.
of Iron Man.
Iron Man,
yeah, I was gonna say, and I got distracted by my press B. So go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I freaking loved Falcon in this movie because I realized we kind of skipped him over. Falcon was super good.
Oh, dude,
Falcon.
The way
Amazing.
They turned Red Wing into a robot where like it's another example where you get that homage to the comics but in like a context that makes sense in this world.
Yeah.
Because like giving him a mental control of like a falcon or a hawk or whatever like doesn't really make sense
It's so great.
in this world.
in this universe, yeah.
But they still have that thing where he's got sort of like a pet that he like works with.
It's so good.
Like it's so good. He's great.
What scene
Anyway.
was it where
Cute.
like
Pet him.
where where
With Black Widow?
Black Scarlet. Black Widow. She's like
Black Scarlet.
Scarlet
Johansson?
Black Witch. She is like, oh, thanks, Sam, or whatever, and he's like,
Don't thank me.
Don't thank me.
I'm not thanking that thing. His name is Red
Red
Wing.
Wing.
He's
Mom.
cute. Pet him. And we kind of skipped over it. I don't know why, but like Black Panther has a great story arc.
Oh yes.
They introduced him really well with like
my
they
God.
just dropped Wakanda in Age of Ultron as like a name drop,
Yeah.
and they introduced them really well to the world, and that him being introduced as a character plays into the main story, and he sees both sides, ends up being on Cap's side,
Yeah.
but he's on Iron Man's, but it's very personal. Like
Yeah.
it's still got that personal connection, so you understand why he's fighting for what he's fighting for.
And he's got this very like you can tell he's like a warrior, just like the way he talks and like
Mhm.
the way he like is so like determined to get Bucky.
Yeah.
He's just like
He's
like I'm
so
gonna get him,
out
and,
for
like,
blood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's
dude.
crazy. And then like the whole end scene where he realizes that they're destroying themselves or whatever, and he's talking to Zemo up on the hill.
Yeah.
Oh.
And like it's so good. And then when like Zemo goes to shoot himself and he's like, the living wood is not done with you yet.
What I
It's
love
like,
about that is he doesn't really. He's gonna kill Zemo up until he finds out why Zemo's doing this,
And he
then-
realizes
yeah,
they're
he
doing the
realizes
same
what-
thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't do that. And so that I feel is that's such an important lesson for him to learn. And we totally get that lesson and we totally see it.
Yeah.
But I think this subtle shift that he does is so good. Like obviously you could argue it could be a little bit more. I felt like it was a little too subtle. That whole I'm not gonna kill you, but he does that kind of breath of fresh air thing.
Yeah, but he does have that line that's
Yeah.
very like,
Yeah.
vengeance has consumed you, it is consuming them, and I'm done letting it consume me.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so good.
Where he realizes, like, if I, like, kill you, or if I had
Yeah.
killed Winter Soldier, I literally would have been doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I would have become you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he stops just before that moment, and, it was so good.
Also, last thing before I really have to go.
Yeah.
Martin Freeman's role in this movie seems so just like why?
It was like a cameo.
Like
almost.
everyone was like, "Oh, Martin Freeman's gonna be in Civil War. What the hell is he gonna play?" And he plays a nobody.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
really. And he also made me super uncomfortable with an American accent. Like when he's like talking to Zemo at the very end, and he's like trying to be like all angry, and he doesn't have an English accent. I'm like,
Plays
this
an
is making me-
asshole so good though.
I know. I'm just like, I feel really uncomfortable right now.
Really?
But yeah, I just felt it weird that he was in this movie. I was like, he didn't need to be in it.
No, but at this point, I feel
But,
like
like-
there's a level of, like, as an
White
actor,
hot.
you're just like, be in a Marvel movie? I'll
Yeah,
do it.
No, it's
Yeah.
fair.
Small role,
As
whatever.
soon as they cast a Benedict
yeah,
Cumberbatch,
small-
Martin Freeman was like,
Yeah.
I was just going to talk quickly about the fact that one of my biggest gripes, and Kelly, I know you agree with me about this, that Batman vs Superman and Zack Snyder's directing style always went for the shot. And I love that this movie never went for the shot unless it made sense. There was
It
one,
got the shot because it was there.
like that one beautiful shot where like Iron Man's pushing the beams and you have that slow motion shot of his shield and it's like against the shield and it's just like boom, you get it and you're like, wow, that's a beautiful fucking shot. And I realized the reason it's so good is because it's not every other shot of the fucking movie.
Yeah.
It comes out of the action and the filmmakers like the Russo brothers like kill it and they go like, okay, we got the action flowing, and right here we can get, and it's like the cover to the Civil War comic, that shot. And they're like, and I'm sure they wanted it, but they make it work. Like they go like, the action flows, and then Cap comes in on the charge after getting knocked down, and Tony's pushing him back, and then we can get it right there. We'll slow it down so you can appreciate it, and we're back in the action. And any of those moments happen because the action leads there, and it's so good.
There was someone else brought up that like, comparing like the DC stuff to Marvel, it's like NFL versus college league. It's just like, well, because like Marvel just has so much more experience, and like even though they're both trying to do the same thing, like Marvel just like
also
get it.
You've got to bring it up because it's a big point of contention that a lot of people bring up is like the sense of humor. Marvel proves once again how to do humor right because the movie is very heavy. It deals with a lot of dark stuff. A lot of people die. They're dealing with like the consequences of like vigilantism and heroism and everything, but it knows when to drop a joke and lighten the mood and show you the camaraderie of the characters. Like Clint can drop a joke because he's a wisecracker and that's how he deals with stuff. He starts, and I think they got him like better than they've ever got him, to be honest. The sense of him like making jokes and being just a wise ass who picks on people's like nerves, like because that's always who Hawkeye was. And like they get that, and like he fills that role in terms of like the overall cast, but also you get to drop those jokes. You have those moments between Falcon and Winter Soldier of them bickering, and it fills a greater role in the narrative of like Falcon doesn't trust him and thinks that they might be doing the wrong thing, but he trusts Cap. But it also helps lighten the mood when things start to get really heavy, and it does it at the right moments and gives you a chance to breathe. So then when you get the reveal that Winter Soldier killed Tony's parents, you're not already so bogged down and like upset about everything that hits you and you're like, oh God, no, man! Don't, Tony! No! You're like, oh, you guys were so close. You almost made it. This was gonna be okay, but because you felt like it was gonna be okay, so they can bring you back down. It takes you on that ride. It doesn't just go, it's shitty and it's shittier and it's shittier and now you're sad and now you're depressed and now you're done with this movie. It handles the mature themes and the darkness with the levity, and it does it so well.
Speaking of depressing, I have to go. So I'll let you wrap it up. You can just hit stop broadcasting. Bye, everybody.
Cool.
Okay.
See you, Breno.
Bye.
I don't know if we have much more to say. I wanted to quickly say it's a super quick thing. Like literally super quick. I think it was a really good using Bucky made it a really good Captain America sequel where it follows the first movie and then it follows Winter Soldier, and like those three alone tell a good story, but it's also a good sequel to the Avengers and has a good place within the Marvel Cinematic Universe by incorporating the other characters and dealing with ramifications of Age of Ultron and stuff. It manages to be a good sequel to like two completely different plot threads and connects them into one movie and makes it thematically work because Winter Soldier becomes the catalyst that causes them to go into conflict because of the Sokovia Accords. So it's simultaneously a sequel to two different movies while feeling like one cohesive film. And that, like, I just said that sentence and it blows my mind. That they pulled that off.
That it's a sequel to two movies and still is good.
And it's still good.
Yeah, man. Because stories go beyond, like, how we perceive sequels. Like,
it's all about themes and like tying things together, right?
And that's why you always get spin-offs, and that's why you always get those alternate views into these worlds, because these worlds have a lot to say and a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right? And a lot happens, and because you have these complex characters with goals, with ambitions, they begin to feel like real people, and the moment you start to focus on other people in that universe, the more real that universe becomes, and the more they have to like really make these like motivations make more sense, and then the more real it gets. And it just kind of is this really cool cycle that if they kind of falter, you go, it's okay because everything else is good.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's the problem that comics have, is that it's been going on too long. Right? And
there's no real changes in development. They always eventually have to get back to the status quo.
But the thing about the movies that can be really good is because they're left up to the actual individual actors to really portray those character arcs. so that we really feel like they actually do carry all their
'cause,
cast with them.
The actor now, like Chris Evans now, he gets where Cap is. You know, like he's done so much work before now that like he understands the character's basic premise, and then he goes, okay, now I know what he's gone through and how this feels to him.
Yeah.
And so he's in that character arc because he's literally been in that character arc for years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, just overall great movie. Probably one of my favorites, if not possibly my favorite in the MCU. Like, if you told me they would have made a Civil War movie and I was going to love it, I would have laughed at you. But it's amazing. Also, if you told me... I feel bad for DC because if you had said 5 years ago there's going to be a Batman vs. Superman movie and basically a Captain America vs. Iron Man movie, and the Captain America vs. Iron Man movie is going to be better and have more people excited about it, people would have laughed at you. But that's just the shape of the world now, and as somebody who's mostly a Marvel fan, I'm stoked, but I'm also sad because I'm a DC fan too, and I just wish that I could get as excited about the DC stuff.
But it's just, they just don't, they're not patient.
They're not patient.
If they play their cards right, though, if you actually think about it, if they take their time...
Because they can pick up as Marvel's dropping off. They can play the long game.
And they're not gonna. They
not
want to beat them right now.
Yeah.
They're like, our numbers aren't as good right now. We want to be right now. And that's why they're going to lose.
But based on how good Civil War is, they're not going to win that fight.
Nope.
They're not going to win that fight.
They're literally going to be playing catch up.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't catch up with that.
You can't catch up with that. Like how
they've had like how when did first Iron Man come out?
See ya. Iron Man came out like what 2008 or something.
Yeah.
The first Iron Man came out in 2008.
I think so. I know I was in high school.
Yeah, I was still in high school.
I know I was in high school. Was it 8 years ago? I thought it was longer.
It might have been 2007, 2006. It was like, it was between 2006 and 2008. Without looking it up, I can tell you that right now. It was one of those years.
Yeah.
Because I know,
It probably was 2008, wasn't it?
I think it might have been.
2008 and what? 2009.
No, it might have been 2007. But it's one of those.
But then, so over the last 8 years, you've had all these movies come out. Holy shit, it's been 8 years since these movies started coming out. That's fucking awesome.
Right?
But they've had an 8 years head start. Oh, that's why I do this.
Exactly. Anyway, we're getting rambly.
Yeah.
We're waxing philosophical. But overall, as you can see, we love Civil War. Let us know what you thought. Let us know if you're Team Cap or Team Iron Man. Because I do respect Tony a lot more in this film than I did in the comics. I gotta say that.
Real quick, Robert Downey Jr., as you said earlier,
might have been his best performance in the MCU so far. It was so subtle and so dialed in, and like I mean, Robert Downey Jr. doesn't need my praise. The guy's freaking amazing. But I gotta give credit where it's due. It was good. It was just good acting.
Yeah.
We got to see an emotional Captain America too, like when he's crying holding the coffin.
Oh, I wasn't ready for that.
Hello.
Okay,
right in the feels.
When Black Widow comes and she's just like, he's like, why are you here? It's like, I don't want you to be alone. And he like hugs her. I cried.
Yeah.
I straight up was like, oh my god, I didn't get that line the first time.
The relationships are so good. They're so good. And I heard in Winter Soldier, I don't know if it's true in Civil War, but in Winter Soldier, because Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson worked on a movie a long time ago, and they've been friends for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, they got to, like, write some of their own scenes and, like, sort of direct themselves. Because they work so well together already. So like, the banter in Winter Soldier when they're, like, driving in the car and stuff, I heard that they basically wrote that.
Like keep your feet off the dash, we're borrowing it.
Yeah, like, that stuff, that was them. And, like, if that's true, and if that kind of vibe carried over into this one, it's just good. It's just good character, good writing, good. It's good.
It's good. Good, yeah.
So yeah, let us know your thoughts overall, criticisms, because we praise it pretty. I mean, we've seen it twice now, and we're still pretty on the hype train, and that's impressive to me.
I think I need to see it a third time just so I can be critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so I can be like, what could they have done better?
But let us know.
Exactly.
We're finally starting to make some more stuff, so don't forget to subscribe if you want to see some more discussions. We've got some other stuff in the works in the background.
And
it is coming.
Something you guys want to see us talk about, don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy. Let us know if there's videos you want to see, even if there's gameplay stuff you want us to do, or whatever, games you want us to talk about, because we need to start doing that too.
Yeah, we need to start doing a game retroactive.
So
we should start doing a retroactive.
I really want to do that.
Let's do a Halo retroactive, just because it's my favorite fucking game.
We're going to do that at some point. Like, comment, subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to let us know. Stay connected. We're just starting, but every little bit of support we get from you guys really, really helps. So let us know what you thought in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. See you, friends.
Time now.
Boop.